Or so the name struck me the other day, the Still Mountain Satsang.
Yes.
And I was wondering, every mountain, like when you see after Arunachala, feels still, like you sense this stillness in things, and then you start feeling stillness in movement as well. So I felt like if this entire period of doing these videos with you, it seems to be that journey where the stillness of the mountain started with Arunachala. Of course, I came because of that. But now I'm slowly seeing that sense of stillness in movement and in things that are happening around me and within me and without me. And wow, that's just a whole different way of existing.
Yes.
So today I want to speak about this dimension of stillness from where life happens. I'm new to this, I would say. The recognition. And that day when I left, you said, you'll learn how to drive in samadhi. And since then, that has
in Sahaj Samadhi, not in Nirvikalpa
yeah,
Samadhi.
like Sahaj Samadhi. And I have been doing it because I felt it would be a state. My mind kept telling me, and but not really.
Not really.
Recognizing that has been difficult to some extent.
Recognizing what?
That it's the way it is. Is the way it is now.
It's the way it is.
Yeah. It's not to change. It's not going to. It's the way it is now, and now. So a lot of downtime was required, but then my parents came in, and there's Navratri going on, since it is a very high energy period and so much to do. Things I can't get away from. Otherwise, I live alone. I can just like switch off everything and just do it. But
Correct.
Life has not given me that chance this time. So, yeah, my question is how one operates in this dimension. I don't know if this
in
question...
the dimension of stillness?
Yeah.
Well, so it might be good to start or begin with just pointing out that the full metaphor about Arunachala and stillness is not just the stillness of the mountain. Every mountain is very still. Arunachala as Lord Shiva, of course, the image of Lord Shiva is one of absolute presence and stillness. But Sri Ramana further said about Arunachala that one can see from a distance the stillness of the mountain. Right? The mountain is always there. It always remains the same. Doesn't get up and walk away. It stays right there. It's firmly rooted on the earth. But on the surface of the mountain, there are monkeys, snakes.
Yeah, entire life.
There used to be cows and goats. They took them all off of the mountain. That was a good thing.
Oh, okay.
They used to let the cows and the goats and everybody wander.
Like graze.
Graze up there.
Okay.
Humans on the mountain. So the surface of the mountain is quite busy, quite active. Insects, animals. So you have this interplay between the stillness of the mountain and its firm rootedness on the earth and the movement of life which takes place on the mountain. Deer and pigs and all sorts of animals
Hmm.
that are there, and insects, and the forest is growing, dying,
Hmm.
rotting. So all of this is taking place on the surface of the mountain, but the mountain is unmoved by that.
Hmm.
It supports all of that,
Hmm.
but it's unaffected. So this is really the complete image that Ramana was speaking about.
Hmm.
So this reminds us that we are here, but we are not just what we see on the surface,
Hmm.
in oneself or in others. We're
Hmm.
not what we see on the surface. What's beyond that? This is the foundation of the question, who am I?
Hmm.
Is-
Phenomenal.
Is to know who you are
Hmm.
beyond the senses, beyond the mind, beyond the emotions, beyond the body,
Hmm.
beyond the experiences that you're having.
Hmm.
And still be able to relate to the whole thing as you're seeing that you have to do.
Yeah.
But you can't really be as effective if you are always drawn out into whatever the stimulus is, whatever the phenomenon are, whatever the objects are. If you're always fully drawn into them
Hmm.
and nothing is reserved in the still point, at the still point,
Hmm.
then you can lose your way in the phenomenon, in the
Right.
objects.
Right.
Yeah. So the metaphor is for us to remain as still as the mountain while allowing everything that is going on to go on the surface.
Hmm. So this part of doing something because you have to do, that thought doesn't sit right anymore.
And why does it not sit right?
Doesn't make sense.
Mm.
And
Does that mean that it leads you to believe that you should sit still all the time or you should not move?
it sometimes does that.
Yeah, well, of course, sometimes the impulse is going to come to stop speaking, stop moving, keep quiet, sit still.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when this impulse comes, definitely follow it.
Okay.
But does it make you want to withdraw? In other words, use your will, your own decision-making power and say, well, I shouldn't do that, or
Yeah. I mean, it sometimes feels too much to do the logistics. I think as less logistics as possible is what I would like, and designing my life around it right now. But as long as you live, you're gonna have to eat, you're gonna have to do things.
correct.
And I don't want to discount this this way that okay, so I want to just sit still, so I'm not accessible or whatever. I'm somehow I'm not feeling that as of now, at least. But at least the evening onwards, so once the day gets over, 7 p.m. onwards, I'm off as it is, and then in the morning few hours I'm off, so around half my day I'm anyway off the grid. But that other half also, I don't want to negotiate it. That's the better word. I'm right now negotiating with things. How can I be free of that?
So what you're really saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that for certain hours of the day, there is still a doer.
Yes, exactly.
But you see, the problem is not the activity itself. The difficulty comes because the doer arises. There's still this belief that that when you are using this body, you are using this mind, you are using this speech, and so on, that there is a doer present. That is me. So this is a good opportunity for you throughout the day to begin to ask this question: is there really a doer, or who is the doer? When you feel that come up, you feel this grasping at identifying with the body-mind experience, with the experience of. So use it in that way. Who is the doer? When do you feel this coming up? And understand that there's also a doer that sort of feels like she has to you know, that there should be a time when she stops doing something. So there's also there's a doer there, whether there's a doer or a not doer. That's what I'm trying to say. Whether there's a doer or a not doer, there's this idea that there is an identity in what's happening in the circumstances. So begin just to notice that this I rises, and sometimes it says do, and then identification happens. And sometimes it rises and it says don't do, and a form of identification rises. In either case, if you notice it at that moment, you can be the doer without being a doer. There is just the activity that is going on naturally. And if the impulse comes to stop doing, you are also not the not doer. You are the awareness itself. You are the one who is aware of doing and the one who is aware of not doing.
Yeah.
Now go beyond that. So this is kind of the steps of that.
So sometimes this process occurs right in the middle of something. Like I might be speaking, and then right in the middle, I lose that train of thought. And then I stop speaking because it makes no sense.
Yeah, but that's happening in a natural way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. In that way, you just do nothing.
It's an interesting place to be, nonetheless, because there's a certain relaxation that falls into the body when that happens. And I'm not, like, I can't complain. It's an enjoyable experience. It's not something I would not want or want. It just feels very, like I think I'm just looking for how it could be more smoother, less damaging in general.
So when you say smoother and you say less damaging, can you feel in those concepts the identification that's happening? I want to feel it to feel smoother.
Yeah.
I want it to be less damaging. Who are you referring to?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So what's happening is there is some sort of an impulse coming for you. And then there's an identification with the doer of that impulse to do something or do nothing. This is the place where you can do this work.
Could you say that again? I didn't register fully.
Yeah, it's okay. So I asked you, can you feel the identification with those desires to what did you say? Not
to do things like not damage.
you said you wanted the process to be easier,
smoother and not damaging.
Yeah. So understand that the process is going on anyway. Where the sense of smooth or the sense of damaging is coming in is because at a certain point along in that experience, you are saying, I want it to go smoother.
So I recognize, I feel this, but I do not know now. There's a partial awareness. There's only a partial, like there's something aware that I'm doing it, but my tendency or my vasana is so strong that it takes over, but that is also seen, but it does take over. So it is happening, not that I'm not aware.
No, but if you see it, if you see that it's happening, it's not taking over. Taking over means I am ignorant of what is happening.
Okay.
If you are seeing what is happening, now you have the possibility of perceiving that, to use a metaphor, as though it's a bubble rising in water or in the sea. And when it gets to the surface, it pops. If you are seeing it, it doesn't trap you.
So I think I would have to share something,
Okay.
but practically, and then maybe I'd understand better. So last few days, I've been going through some chanting meditations. And after a certain point, I go in a space where my body is like an involuntary stillness. So I have no control over my body whatsoever, and I feel like a log, like a rock, and it goes on for like quite some time. So even if the whole world around me, so after some point, everybody starts chit chatting, they start eating, they do what they need to do. Like,
Yes.
it's a 1.5 hour thing, and it's supposed to get over at some point. For me, it runs for hours after that, and I can hear everyone. I can see my process inside, and I can hear and sense everything outside, but I can also sense um, the chants, like the vibration is. So I felt like yesterday, I felt like my entire right side was vibrating on a whole different dimension than my left, and I felt like a split, but not disharmonious. It was very harmonious, but it was very beautiful to witness that. So sometimes I see, if I could probably say that this was the way I experienced Shiva and Shakti at the same time.
Yes.
So I feel the log, but I hear and sense everything, but riding that time or coordinating or speaking. Like the other time, my mom got very scared when she saw me like that, and she was like, "What happened to my daughter? She's just not moving. Maybe she's unconscious." But I couldn't tell her for 1 hour. I couldn't speak, utter a word that, no, I'm fine. And later I had to tell her that I was fine. Because as a mother, she got concerned. So this is the stillness I'm talking about. Like the body has, the body is body, and she's doing what she wants to do. Like, and unfortunately, I have a good one, so cooperates. But those hours, I just can't have any control, and I'm fine with it.
Okay.
But it's just I want to know this. This is my reference to stillness right now. So just to give a context to our discussion, as well as understanding a little bit of how do we maneuver, because I don't want to change anything about this.
Yeah, you already said there's nothing you can do about it when this happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it alone.
So I've just made logistical arrangements for everyone else to do what they need to do in the process, so that I'm not in their way. And I've asked help so that I can just like be led to a foresty part of the property, and I just want to sit there and I don't want to do anything. And everybody knows that now, so it's much easier to navigate this part. But I have not experienced something like this before, and the word experience doesn't make sense anymore as well. So no way to express.
Well, of course, the world experience doesn't make sense in that environment where you're in an altered space or in a samadhi state. Those are really samadhi states, even though your eyes open. So this is a Siva Kalpa kind of samadhi where there is still presence there, but you are very much inside, not outside, but aware of the outside. Yeah, so this is all very good. So if you can make arrangements and you can understand, people around you can understand, they cannot trouble you during that time, then you are fine.
Yeah. The other night I was so stretched in some way to figure this out that I was going to ask that if I could come and sleep here. It's like, only Guruji could help me now. Because I was like, at this point, I have just no idea. And I just felt this, but it's something took care of it, like I didn't have to. I couldn't move, but someone in the group stepped up, and she just decided to be by my side. And it was quite something. And then it's just been continuing last few days. Everything has been like this. So as I said, I'm finally comfortable here.
So you are learning to trust, you know. We talked about this before. These experiences are going on in some way.
Yeah.
And you are learning to trust, to follow what is happening.
Yeah.
Because in the final analysis, you've heard me say this before, there is really nothing happening. There is a perception in experience and in the mind that something is happening, and there isn't a trust yet. Is this good or is this bad? So the mind is still trying to find still trying to make some decisions about what is happening.
Yes.
But you are getting to this point in your own experience where unless you take up some form of what might be referred to as radical trust, in other words, to know that whatever experience you're having, you are being called into the heart, by the self. Arunachala has you, is guiding you. And so you are doing the right thing. You are staying in it and letting it unfold and seeing how it's happening. So then someone comes and looks after you, or you're able to step off into the forest and just stay there for a few hours. So yeah, it's all well. Everything is well.
Another beautiful dimension of this is feeling this sense of as if everything is in vivid color. Everything is brighter and more alive. So last night it rained and I decided to be in it, and it was as if I've never experienced rain before. Maybe I was because I was waiting. It was so hot all these days. I was waiting for rains, but it's interesting and phenomenal in some way to experience the same things, but so much. It's like I had a black and white television and now I have color, HD, 8K. It's very vivid, everything is so alive, everything is speaking to me, sort of. I don't know how to express, but yeah, feels more and more expansive also. It's like I've done psychedelics before, and after the drug starts hitting you, the entire experience of how you see something changes.
Yes, perception changes.
And I know this space within me. And the last time I did a journey with the shaman, I had this, and then I never did it again. Like, I never felt like. But what stayed with me was, for about 6 months, I used to refer to that point every day and integrate it. So my integration of that journey was to go to that space and just stay there. And then when I would come out of meditation, the mind would come back, the doer would start doing things, and whatever, life would be as is. But now I feel that reference is expanded within me without, of course, any stimulation like whatsoever. In fact, a cleaner diet and not so much rest, honestly. Like rest but not sleep. Like I have few hours at this point to sleep really. So does it is it my personal experience that reference point expands, or is it how it works?
Well, the reference point does expand, but you said something very important a minute ago, and that is that when you had the previous experience, it took some time to acclimate and integrate.
Yeah.
That process is also going on now. So as you're having these peak experiences and you're feeling the center expand,
Yeah.
there is still, for this finite mind, if you will, this period of time goes on where there's an integration that happens, a testing that happens, a kind of an understanding that doesn't necessarily need to come from the mind, but often does come through the
What do you mean come through the mind?
mind. In other words, the mind is still sorting through the experiences and seeing what it can see, knowing what it can know, putting things into a perspective it can understand. But because of this experience of expansion, which is continual, it's you come to see that that's a temporary thing that the mind is doing. It's just
Okay.
There's nothing firm in your experience that you can say it's this or it's that, because the point of expansion keeps growing.
Yeah.
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 So soon you start to realize that all you can really do is keep quiet and stay in the experience moment to moment, here now. Keep letting it go. Keep letting it expand, and everything is fine. And you just become more and more acclimated to this new way of perceiving. It's not, for a while it appears like a new way of perceiving, but it actually is you're coming into being. The mind is the instrument of perception. Being is its own.
So the bubble we spoke about earlier has nothing to do with where I am.
The bubble has nothing to do with
Where I am.
With where you are?
It's not arising from here.
You mean from this place, physically?
No. No, I mean from the space of awareness. Is this bubble really rising from here? Is perception really coming from here? Is perception being seen or is perception being made?
Interesting question. Perception being seen or is perception being made? I would say both. Perception is both being seen because there's the space in which perception is happening. So when there is awareness of this space in which perception is happening, then it's possible to see, oh, I am perceiving something. I am perceiving this. I am perceiving that. You can see that. You can see that that's an activity that's going on. Yeah, I would say both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but both are, understand that all of this experience that we're talking about now is all arising within this space of being, you can say, or the self. So, and this is a space of featurelessness or without characteristics. So coming to know oneself is entering the space of the absolute. And in the space of the absolute, then all of these other qualities can be seen or can be perceived or whatever. Where we run into difficulty with perception is really that we perceive something and then take ownership of it or doership of the perception. This is where we run into difficulty. If we don't, if perception is happening all the time within the space of awareness, then it's not a problem until that perception is grasped, clung to, pushed away, said to be right or to be wrong. Yes? Then we start to grasp, we start to build this identity or this personality around what's being perceived, and we begin to struggle with that. We begin to push on that.
So the matter, like we're all creatures of the habits we have, how we say, no?
To a point.
Yeah. Like to a point, yes, of course. I mean, not entirely, it's not possible. But, so what I've so far got is it's both. It's being made, but if it's taken too seriously, it becomes identity.
Yes.
If it's watched, it doesn't stick to you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now I have the power to choose the perception I can have. Is it too much? It's going too far? I don't know. But it's like if I want to change a habit,
Hmm?
when it is not sticking to me, then can I choose something that I want much more easily to be in my life as a habit? Can I choose a good habit over a bad habit? Would that be a perception that can be made? But it's still like a control.
Well, you can certainly say that, and all of the traditions are based on making that kind of a choice, you know. So you stop choosing negativity and you choose positivity. You stop choosing the doership of your activity in the world and you make that the activity of God. So you can definitely do that.
Mm.
You can choose the perception, and in all the traditions,
Yeah.
what you're really doing with all of the practices, whether it's mantra, meditation, you're choosing more positive ways of integrating the perception that you're having, so that you don't fall into the negativity of a poor perception, let's say, or a perception which takes advantage of the body, abuses the body, abuses other people, abuses the world. So you can make that kind of choice, but those are all part of preliminary practices. So all of the traditional ways of centering in spirit, you know, mantra, prayer, japa, whatever you choose, you know, meditation, kirtan, chanting, whatever. Those are all ways of centering the mind in the vibration of spirit.
True.
Right? That's what we're doing.
Yes.
But why are we doing that?
Yeah, that's actually the question. Like, why are we even doing this whole jazz? Like, why do we need
The reason we're doing it is because there still is a form of identification with the other side of that duality.
So aren't we to remove duality instead of stepping out of the entire thing, somewhere picking the other side? I mean, do I need good or bad both habits in some way? Do I need to have any of that?
Well, as long as there is the belief that I am the body, there is going to be the good and the bad that comes as a result of one saying I am the body.
Okay.
Because it's going to be very difficult, as long as you are in the belief structure, I am the body in one way or another. If you feel pain, you will say it's bad. If you feel ecstasy,
yeah, you'll go up to
you'll
it.
say it is good.
Yeah.
But this is not because there's inherent ecstasy in your behavior,
Inherent pain, yeah.
or there's inherent difficulty in pain.
Yeah.
It's because of the belief that you are the body and that this is happening to you that leads us to say, well, this is either good or it's bad. But that's not really the case. If there's no identification with what's happening in the experience or in the body itself, then what can happen? Silence can happen. And the body can be allowed to do whatever it's doing. And there's not identification with it either way. So there's not that need to forcefully choose to do this instead of that. That, in the preliminary stages, that's very useful and it's very helpful. Right?
Yes.
It's very helpful.
For sure. I mean, it centers and it keeps you, I think, on the track. Some of these practices have, so one fine morning 10 years back or something, I woke up to this, and after that I've never felt like eating meat or whatever. And then in between I felt and I ate as well. Like, but I've never gone back to having that as a habit.
Yes.
I now, if ever I do, it is extremely rare and it is an impulsive thing. but I honor the impulse. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan or like by spirit or like, oh my God, I wouldn't eat no matter what. If it's survival, I would eat. Or if I feel nostalgia, I go home because my entire family is absolutely, they're non-vegetarian. So for nostalgia, I might eat one piece and I would
Yes,
feel
of
good.
course.
So it's not a rule anymore.
But let's take it
What
a little
is
bit
it?
further.
Hmm.
You're talking about, rightfully,
Yeah.
patterns of behavior
Yes.
that you can change or not change.
Yes.
When we discover or have an insight
Hmm.
into the true meaning of doing something,
Hmm.
then the behavior just changes on its own because the truth of it is seen. So let me give you an example. I think you may have heard me talk about this before, but maybe not, because I think I've talked about this in the Zoom satsang, but maybe not with you. There was a time after many, many years of intense meditation, of many hours a day of intense meditation for 10 years or 12 years, that there was this sitting in a very peaceful, calm state, which was easy to get into because I'd been doing it for many years, and I was using the method that you're talking about, where I was willfully choosing to live in this way, to act in this way, to behave in this way, to believe in this way, because I was leaving behind the opposites of that from earlier in life, right? Leaving behind trauma, leaving behind war, leaving behind drug abuse, those kinds of behaviors, and coming into this new way of being in the world. And this took many years to cultivate and become stable and let all of that go, and have now this daily practice where coming into silence, coming into peace, coming into was just part of my normal routine. So I had become another person, a different person, you can say, using will, right? Using discipline, self-discipline, and all of that. But one day I was sitting there on the cushion after about 3 or 4 hours, and spontaneously rose up in me this question: who meditates? You see, because I had my whole life was directed during this period of time of 10 years. My whole life was reoriented toward being the meditator, doing the practice, studying the scriptures, all of that. Who is the meditator? And in that moment, even this very subtle outward flowing, I am the meditator. This was very subtle, right? Most people would say, well, that's interior. At that moment, it felt like the belief, I am the meditator, was outside of who I was.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And the attention, I think we've spoken about that before, just started to turn and come and look, who is this meditator? And the meditator dissolved. And there was this recognition in that moment that there was not only no meditator, there was nothing else but this awareness, which was there as itself.
Wow.
And that this couldn't be identified with, because for a little while after that happened, there was an attempt to try to find in this experience a new identity. As I had done, moving from this person who had dealt with all this trauma to being this person who was now able to sit for hours and hours without any movement, without, pain coming and going, thoughts coming and going, emotions coming and going, silence coming and going. I could now do that very easily in whatever the circumstances were. So this was a very subtle identity that had just dissolved. But the habit to do that was still within me.
Wow.
So the habit came up to try to find some way to identify with this awareness itself. And each time there was an attempt to identify as the awareness itself, as an object, the experience fell away of just being. And so I learned very quickly over the course of just a half an hour, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You cannot become awareness.
Yeah,
You
that
can only
makes
be
sense. Yeah.
awareness. You cannot become being.
Yeah.
You can only be being.
Yeah.
You can only be here as
Mm.
presence. You
Mm.
cannot become anything.
True.
So this changed the direction of everything I was doing at that time.
Wow. Yeah, it's impossible to.
Mm.
Yeah, this happens
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
often. I'm very glad you called it out. Yeah, this happens. The last few days has been. I think this is my core.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it struggle, but a core
Okay, so
happening.
understand, first of all, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but don't call it my struggle.
Yeah.
There was just this struggle because what you're doing is what's coming is the interior insight that you can't go that way anymore.
No, I don't understand this.
You can't go in that direction of trying to find who you are now and identifying with that.
Yeah, that keeps failing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that
True.
keeps failing, right?
Yeah,
You
that
can't
keeps
do that
failing.
anymore.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating.
So then what can you do?
That's what, like, I think I got to a point of exhaustion and now I can't move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
and
very
there
good.
is just nothing I can do about it. So at some point, I had to explain everybody around me that I wanted to help, I wanted to go with you, or I wanted to be, but I can't.
But I cannot.
No. Yeah. I cancelled the entire trip we were supposed to go, all the bookings, all the tickets, and I told my parents, I can't go. I can't handle logistics right now, and I can't take you to a place where I do not know if I slip into this again and I won't be able to be functional in a place where you don't speak the language and they are absolutely new to this part of my country. So I said, no, I don't want to do it. I think now I need to just reset the entire system.
Yeah, but understand that this is challenging for you right now. But this is also a transitional place.
And that's good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you are just now having this experience of trusting your experience enough to let your defenses down and to let these things happen when they happen and come when they come and go when they go.
Yes.
But they are still experiences. They are not the self, which does not have this activity of coming and going.
Right.
Right. When you come to the next place of understanding, it will be it's not like you won't ever be able to go and do the logistics of a trip or engaging with people. Okay, just understand that this is just a transition place that you're in.
Okay.
We're again coming back to that sense of rebalancing and acclimating to this new perception. Okay?
Okay.
But if you don't identify with this, it will pass, right? All of the experiences, all of the energetics, all of the siddhis of spiritual recognition come and go, but eventually the thing to understand about them is they go. When you look at the lives of most of the great, great sages, what you see is someone who's very quiet and very comfortable in almost every circumstance. And sometimes they engage in what's going on around them, and other times they just don't engage at all. They just sit there quietly.
Yeah.
You know? So you're just in this transition place now.
Okay.
So this is why I keep coming back to this issue of trust with you.
Yeah.
So you're doing very good. Just keep trusting. And when you need to say, I can't do it right now, give yourself permission to do that. And also don't cling to that. In other words, don't expect that you're going to be saying that forever to all of your, to the people around you, to your loved ones. There will come a time when you'll be very, very comfortable, very still, very silent, like a still mountain. This is where this comes from. This is when this experience is direct perception, then you are always there. You are always here in this moment, now, present. Everything is good. People are coming and going. You are doing things. You are making videos. You are doing meditation. You are in samadhi. You are not. And there's no one doing any of it. But that's because you have now identified with, if there is identification, I can't really say that. You have become the self. You have become this awareness which is simply here, doing whatever comes moment by moment, day by day.
Last time you used this word claim, you said claim something about this, and I don't remember the entire sentence at all. So I'm quoting out of context. But let's see where we get with this. There's nothing to claim now. And I think my entire narrative so far used to be that I claim because I felt I earned something. And you remember we spoke about this references falling away of the past and the future. One of the references that just happened when you speak now is the claiming, because who can claim now? And like I've mentioned that a lot of work is happening and a lot of magically Arunachala is arranging things to happen. So the charity work I was planning to do, now someone has come and they want to fund that entire thing, and I'm in talks. I don't know what will happen. So, but somehow I personally, I just told them that I'm not really attached to this. I will connect you to the people who are more passionate than I am about the cause that you want, if you're open to that. And he said, can you just be part of this? I don't want you to do it if someone else wants to take over, but I just want you to be part of this whole venture. And then I was like, yeah, maybe, yeah, that sounds perfect, because that's the role I want to play. That feels more aligned. And yeah, so I found my place. It's somehow getting clearer of how this was supposed to happen and the way it is happening. And I need nothing, I want nothing, is very clear. Yeah, and because there is no claiming, it's so simple to give away and connect. And yeah, and I told him that I don't promise you anything. I have no outcomes in mind. If you're okay to walk this path of unknown, completely unknown, yes, we'll do amazing stuff, but that would be in the hindsight that you can point out. Now, I'm not going to give you a project report. I'm not going to do any of that. And I've done funding work before, so I know how it works. And I said, I would just not do any of that. And would you be okay with that? And he was so surprised. And then he was like, okay, we can start small. And I was like, yeah, but I will not promise anything because I can't. So, and it's not that I don't want to be responsible or accountable. It's just that I truly do not know. Nobody does, I think. But yeah, in the capitalist world works differently. And I don't want to fit in those principles anymore. So I told him very clearly, but he was like, then just be there, And I was like, yeah, that's comfortable.
Okay.
So how?
Yes.
Is this okay? Like, this is how I'm navigating right now.
This is not only okay. This is the best way. This is what you and I have been talking about.
Yeah.
So this is this idea of not claiming. But
Yeah.
the other side of that is maybe to say, just allow what needs to happen or wants to happen.
Yeah.
But for you to say, but I won't do anything. I just want to be there, and for him to agree to that, this is agreeing to the most powerful tool that there is.
Yeah.
And that is to just simply be.
And also to be very honest and upfront, transparent, because I do understand that when someone puts in their money and their work and their energy to something, they might have expectations. And
yes,
I am realizing that I cannot, mm, like I said, the have to do part is no more existing. So I know I will not stand up to that. So why even give them even vague hopes about it or whatever? So I just don't want to flame any of that fire. That principle is like new to my ethic,
Mm-hmm.
but I have always been practicing this. But there's a whole different dimension on which this is now, where I'm coming from. I used to always say that before as well. It's one of my core principles of business that I don't promise, but if you don't like the product, don't pay me. This is how I would deal with corporates as well. That
Yes, yeah.
you don't like my program, I facilitate 3 days. You ask your participants. If you don't receive your objective, I don't want the money, but I'll not bargain. If I have said this amount, a penny less or a penny more, I don't want it to have that discussion. So this has been my way of working, but now it has gone one step beyond, and like I don't know anything. So I would claim so much earlier that I would give a money back guarantee, and also, and now the same person is like, I do not know.
So maybe it would be helpful for me to give you a story about Swami that I knew years ago here,
Okay.
who was a devotee of Yogi Ram Sarad Kumar and lived at the ashram. And maybe it would be helpful if I tell you his story,
Okay.
because a similar kind of thing happened a different way a little bit, but and I can tell you what his experience was, and you might find something helpful in the story.
Perfect.
Yes. So the Swami was living over at Yogi Ram Sarad Kumar many years, at more than 10 years. He's a very simple man living a very simple life, but very well known around the ashram because he was always there. Always there for meals and always there for chanting and things like that. Not chanting necessarily himself, but just sitting quietly. One night he had a dream. He called a vision of Yogi Ram Sarad Kumar saying to him, I want you to build a feeding station for the sadhus because their meals are not regular. And it's good for their health if they have someplace they can go each day, not relying on just the cars coming by on the road, but rather that if they need food, they know that they can go every day. They can have some breakfast, they can have some lunch. So I want you to build this place. And he said, okay, I will do that. But Yogi said, but you can't tell anyone.
Yogi Ram being Yogi Ram.
Yeah. And he said, okay, good. So what do I do? He said, you don't get to do anything. You only get to keep up doing what you're doing. And there will be a person who will come. And at one moment, you will speak what I'm telling you. And this person is going to help you. So he just kept up. A couple of days later, someone came who was one of his circle of close friends who was his devotee. So what is up? He said, I've had this vision of Yogi Ram Sarad Kumar and this is what he told me. And he said, oh, yeah, no problem. Wait a minute, let me make a phone call. So he makes a phone call, one phone call. This is what Yogi Ram Sarad Kumar has told Swamiji to do. Can you help us? He said, I have a piece of land over by Nanagaru ashram. I'll send the deed tomorrow. So the deed came. Swamiji went over, looked at it, said, okay, fine. He went back and he started, then this other guy started encouraging him to talk to everybody. That night, Yogi Ram came to him again and said, you are to do nothing.
And don't tell anybody.
You don't get to you get to tell people what the project is, but you don't get to be involved. You don't get to organize it, nothing. So he said, okay, what do I do? He said, you move out to the land and you just sit under a tree, do nothing. So he moved out to the land, sat under a tree, did nothing. And slowly, well, actually it was really fast, people just started showing up. Because he told Mataji, right, Madhaviki, that this is what the vision was, and someone had given him this piece of land, and he was going there, and he was just going to sit there. So of course they went out all through the community. People started coming. One person said, I will drill the well. Another person said, I will pay for the concrete. Another person said, I will get the kitchen going. And he just sat there under the tree. And they would come to him and say, what should we do about this? And he would say, okay, yeah, let's do that. But that was as far as his involvement would go. He said, I'm instructed to do nothing, just to be here. So this is maybe useful for you to know that this is possible.
You just gave me a complete clarity on what I need to be. Yeah.
And because Yogi Ramsara Kumar was saying to him, the key is non-identification. You can look at it, you can say. That's what he's saying. It's non-identification. It's not doing. Not doing is, without identification, is as powerful as doing. So that, because there is this recognition that one is not doing, one is the self, one is open, one is serving God, then everything can flow through because there's no personality or identity to get in the way of it. So,
Wow.
try it.
It's a very interesting example because something very much parallel to this happened just yesterday. We went to a village. I'm doing this with another friend, and he serves in that village. It's a gypsy village close to Vediyapanur. And it's a village where the tribe, it's a tribal village, the tribe is clairvoyant. It's like the base of that's how they're known for, that's
Okay.
what they're known for. And we had run out of water, we both were thirsty, so we actually went to the village before we look at the land, which was close by, to get water. So he called upon some house because he knew and he speaks Tamil. And I was looking around and people gathered around us and they looked at me like a doll, like someone different. And I told him, I was like, you should have told me. I would have worn something more modest. I thought it's just me and you, and I'm bored of wearing what I was wearing. So he's like, it's okay. These people have no judgment. They just understand love. And I was like, what? Really? But in another 5 minutes, something striking happened. This lady, she came with a 2-month-old baby close to me and said something like, hi, hello to my friend. And he said, I want water. She, without asking me, gave the 2-month-old baby to me and went to fetch water as if it's a doll. And the baby sat so peacefully with me all through this time. And it just struck me what he said, that the trust flows in this tribe. And who gives a 2-month-old to an absolutely random woman who is not even, doesn't even speak the language? Doesn't happen very often. Like, I would not give my child if I were to be a mother, but she just gave the baby to me, and she went fetched water. She kept talking to everyone, and I'm still looking at her that now she'll claim back. Now she'll claim back. Till I gave the baby back, she didn't come. She kept going around. She almost took like a break for 15 minutes or so, and baby was chilling, laughing, smiling at us, and kids playing around. And I was like, yeah, I would like a land next to this. Like, these people,
This group of people,
yeah, they're good people. And he said, we've been feeding this village and taking care of them. They don't speak the exact Tamil, but like they speak their own language,
dialect,
plus,
yeah.
like a dialect. And I said, they speak literally the language of love, like the
And
energy,
trust,
just and just trust. For me, some of these experiences have been so strikingly opening my heart that how could someone just leave their 2-month-old baby with me? And it was just phenomenal. And then we go see the land, and I love it. And we meet the owner directly. We don't have any middleman. And the guy says, you sit with the owner and you tell him. And I said, if they can donate, because I have no money for this. And he said, do you like the land? And I said, yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. It's flower agriculture on two sides. It's going to be fragrant. What better could happen to my life? And he's like, then I asked, what's the price? And he said, we'll talk about it. And he just left. This was just yesterday morning. And when you said about this whole story, that entire memory just got refreshed. And I'm like, yeah. And I was just telling Murli, my friend, that this is the neighborhood I want. Because the stuff we're going to do is going to involve a lot of catharsis. And we were shouting, screaming. And like, there's deep work that's going to happen in this place. And there's satsangs will happen and kirtans will happen. And it's going to be noisy at times. At times there would be people in samadhi who don't want to be disturbed at all. So we need quite control over this people around. But this whole tribe is clairvoyant. Who would imagine that you could have a land next to a tribe like this? But it's just insane how life operates. That's one. And second, how you said that, and it's so relaxing that I have to do nothing. It's so liberating.
God's will.
It's God's will.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no problem. If it works, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I am loving the process so much of creating this. I don't even know what's being getting created.
Or how. It doesn't matter. Yeah. God's will. Let God's will be done.
Yeah.
Through you.
Literally, thy will be done is like
very good.
In the air now.
Very
and
good.
It's just astonishing. Like, nobody shows a land and doesn't tell a price. Never happens, right? But it happened yesterday. And the guy's like,
just. And you can't say it never happened.
That's true. Thank you for calling that out. I think that's the reason I come.
Keep your awareness of languaging and so on in that God's will. Let thy will be done, and then you won't have this kind of.
The habit of languaging. Yes, I can be more mindful.
Yeah.
Does it also occur to you personally that...
Personally? Do I have to be personal?
Yeah. For this moment, when your body goes through, say, pain or suffering, which you went through just now, and we all know, and that time you said, let the body do what it does.
Yes.
And it has really deeply stayed with me also. So I think what you meant that time was not only the body, is it? You meant everything.
Yes.
I only understood it to the body part of pain that time. But it suddenly struck me, maybe you meant all of it.
All of it.
All of it.
All of it.
Interesting and intense.
What we perceive as pain in the body is there. What we perceive as pain in our emotions is there. What we perceive as pain in the world is there in the experience of living. But what we do, what a person does after that perception has risen, that there is pain in the body, makes all the difference in the world. Because if there's no identification or attachment to the body, or attachment to the story, then that pain is just left alone to be pain for as long as it's there. And there's no mental anguish over the fact that the pain is there. And the result of that is very clear. A friend of mine who was here during the time that I went through the surgery, after it was over with and I came home and he was here looking after me for 4 or 5 days afterwards. So he was with me for about 10 days, and he had flown here from someplace else in India to do that. And he had just come from spending 2 weeks with his mother who had had surgery.
Oh.
And on her back. And he said that the difference was night and day. that being with her, there was so much stress and so much anguish and so much tension and so much uncertainty, and everyone was stressed, and family was stressed, nurses were stressed, everybody was stressed, mother was stressed, all of this was going on. He said, and then he came here, and the next morning he came for the surgery to the hospital, and everything was so peaceful and so calm. And I came through this surgery. I had to stay in intensive care for 24 hours after the surgery. And when I came back into the room from the intensive care, he was there. And then he was there for the next 3 or 4 days. He said, amazing. It was like being in a temple. And the difference between being in the hospital with his family and being in the hospital with myself and Elena was like, he said it was hard for him to comprehend what was happening.
Wow.
And the staff was so friendly, and everyone was so peaceful and so calm. The nurses and the doctors coming in and checking on me. Everything. He said the whole floor in the hospital was just like a sanctuary. So I'm not bragging on that. I'm just saying that's the difference between there is pain and then there is suffering. And suffering is not mandatory. Suffering is voluntary.
Optional.
Optional, yeah.
Yeah. I think Eckhart.
And that's
says
true on
that
every
very-
level. Yes, Eckhart talks about
Eckhart
this.
talks about
Yes.
this. Yeah. The pain body and suffering, and it has helped me immensely with
Yeah,
my
yeah,
disease as
yeah,
well to live.
But this is also true of
Yeah.
mental pain, right? Of emotional pain.
I think it just becomes a bit hard to differentiate that.
Well, subtle states are always harder to work with.
Yeah.
But
And
this is what
it's-
we learn over years.
getting a grip on mental is to my experience is still easier than emotional, because the emotions for me have been this driving force of why I do what I do. And when that is not working out or not feeling like, it becomes hard. Suddenly it becomes difficult. But the subtler states, like you said, the more subtle your attention, I think it's skill set somehow also now that,
Yes.
yeah, like you really have to skill yourself and upskill with different techniques. Also, we are blessed. I mean, I think there are thousands of techniques to do this now. So whatever works. But I have like a whole toolkit now, and I use things as much as I can. But even the willingness or this internal motivation to go subtler in emotional states is has been quite something for me.
Yes, but in the Vedanta and Advaita world, all of those techniques and methods are really broken down into one instruction.
Yes.
And that instruction is not this.
True.
Neti neti.
Neti. Yeah.
Neti neti. And this works on the physical level with pain. It works on the emotional level with emotional pain. It works on the mental level with disturbing thoughts. And it works on the level of having difficult or traumatic experiences in one's past, which rise up periodically as a memory, or having a difficult experience right now, today. This is this remembrance, which is very simple and very direct. It doesn't take a long time, but it does take persistence. So you have to remember. You have to remember to say, not this, not this. The meaning being, I am not this.
Yes. Yes.
And then that naturally leads to the question, if I am not this,
who am I?
Who am I?
The central inquiry.
Comes back to the central inquiry. Correct.
About the trauma, there's one teaching particularly of Ramana that has helped me, is that he says, if you were to throw garbage out of your house,
Yes.
do you go through the
Would
garbage
you go
all
through
over
the sack?
again?
Yeah.
Do you go through the whole sack?
Would you go through the sack?
No, right? You just throw it.
You just throw the whole sack out.
That has phenomenally changed my letting go process.
Very good.
Yeah,
Lovely. That's a profound example.
So put all of these subtler states together. So how I've done is taken tools, got more disidentified with the tools, then put them together, then use Ramana's final go, and then let it out.
Good.
But
Good.
softly and kindly to the body and to
Yes,
the
of
being
course.
also.
Yeah.
But
This
yeah,
is very important. Softly and kindly is very important.
yeah, I would be very
To
harsh
the body,
to
to the
myself.
mind. Yes.
So
Yes.
not anymore. I was, I think, quite fortunate to have you and have teachers who could help me go through it. It was not easy to be by myself. I do feel there's a role of a guru and just the masters in books also, like not only in person.
Yeah. No,
or-
sometimes the hidden master sends you a book.
Yeah, that's true. Or a conversation over a chai. with
Arunachal is
someone.
not going to get up and walk into your room, but
True.
Lord Shiva may very well send you a book.
Or you may meet, like I think in the subtler forms now, the meetings are so beautiful. It feels like I felt I sat with this goddess Neela Saraswati for a few, like 2 days back, and it feels like the deities they have their own role, and if
Yeah.
you connect purely, they can be phenomenal to help you get over that
Correct.
particular bump in your journey. So I see this role of mantras and chanting and tantra as well in my journey is very, very as important as the inquiry, because for me that works.
Yes.
This is my process.
Yes, and this is the final question to be asking yourself is, does it work? Because you can always know that whatever tools are in your toolbox, when you don't need a tool anymore, it just stays in the toolbox. You don't bring it out.
Yeah.
You know?
And it can stay as long as it needs to
Yes.
be.
And maybe you pick it up again and maybe you never do.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have it there.
Yeah. So I've always built an inventory of things that have worked for me, consciously wrote them down or practiced or whatever you say. And also I think my profession helps because I guide a lot of people on these journeys. So
Yes.
I tend to have a bigger toolbox than I need most times. But it's
Not
really
only
important.
that, this being in this position for you is also a tool.
Yeah. Every day. So amazing.
The need to be present for others is a very important tool to the one who is asked to be present.
True. I think I'm working on myself and I work on others for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this gives me a fair idea of what navigation looks like in this moment. In this transitionary phase, that was a big one for me today, to know that this is not going to be forever. And I don't need to be in a cave. I don't want to be either.
Yeah, but don't be surprised if you find yourself there. You know, because that's exactly what happened to you. You were not physically in a cave, but you went to the chanting,
Yeah.
and so on, and then you fell into the cave of the heart. So remember that the cave that you were talking about, we use as a physical example, is not a physical cave on the mountain, unless it is. For some people, it absolutely is. But the cave that is really being pointed at is the cave of the heart, where there is such deep silence and such deep surrender that people are all around you, but you can't say a word. You can't engage in it. Yeah, this is also a cave, but this is the cave of the heart.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I hope everybody who listens goes in their cave of their heart. That's my prayer for everyone, for the
beautiful.
world
Yeah.
now.
Very noble.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.